So I spent the better part of the past couple of days trying to refactor my game to make it more efficient and to comply with my new design philosophy, which is model view control and discrete functionality and also deterministic execution. But I'm not going to lie, it's been pretty difficult. I've had a pretty hard time trying to figure out how to get all of this to work. As you can see, this is all of my old code just commented out because I've been rebuilding everything kind of from the ground up. I've been trying to find a way to make things more elegant, to make everything more pragmatic. I have fallen into the same trap that has plagued me in the past, and in this video, I'm not really going to give many updates that are, like, they're not going to be glamorous. This is not a glamorous update video. I'm not going to show you, wow, look at all these new features. It's going to be a bit more philosophical because that's really what I've been up to for the past few days. I've been going through this philosophical evolution of sorts. I'll show you what I've got so far. The interface is still the same. The UI is still here. It doesn't work though. It's completely disconnected. Nothing works. And the player doesn't rotate. Everything is broken. Even the solar glare occlusion check is broken. That's because I have been rebuilding everything from the ground up. However, the minimap is still there. The minimap still works. You can still zoom in and out. As you can see, I've added a smooth zoom ability. Right now, we're centered on the player. That's why we're zooming into Saturn's rings, because the player is orbiting within Saturn's rings. If I, press the... Okay, well, that's a glitch that I can't really get rid of. But if I press the arrow keys, I can switch between the planets, like I used to be able to before. Right now, we are on Mercury. As you can see, Mercury... There's the sun over there. Now we're going to go to Venus, then go to Earth, go to Mars, and now we're inside of Jupiter. Yep. And then Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Eris, or whatever. These are some dwarf planets that I added. One of these is going to be Pluto. I think I'm inside of planet... Yeah, this is planet 9. Does not have a texture. But yeah, the minimap still works. I can still switch between minimap and, first-person view. And it's, in fact, I would say it's a lot cleaner now because, the code is a lot more efficient and everything's better. But you also can notice that I have a lot more code. I have a lot more files. Everything is a lot more complicated now. That's because I am refactoring my game to essentially enable rapid development. I'm basically making it so that everything is very modular and I can add things and just like drop them into the game without having to refactor a bunch of my code every single time, which is what I had to do before. So I have this main game manager, which manages the overall flow of the game. This is where the deterministic execution comes in. So instead of manually, instead of every single piece of code calling its own update function, the game manager calls the functions on every single manager, sub-manager. And then those sub-managers call the functions on their respective child nodes. So that way I know exactly what's being called when. And the stack trace is really easy to follow. This also means that I can inject dependencies as needed, so I don't have to rely on global functions like the input module to, check input. I also have like an input manager, right, which is where all the input is processed. I have a timekeeper, which is where time will be processed. Orbital manager is in charge of the orbital simulation. View manager is in charge of making everything look good. This is not a view manager. I don't know why I keep clicking on these and they just go back to the top of this. But, this is view manager. By far the most complicated part of the program so far. We got orbital manager. It's pretty simple, relatively, because it's mostly just calling update functions on the orbital body nodes. We got timekeeper, the most simple of all, but it will get more complicated as I add time warping functionality. But yeah, you see what I'm basically doing is I'm splitting everything up based on its functionality. And that's great. The problem is, I got lost in the sauce, okay? I got way too deep into the weeds when it comes to optimization. I tried to make everything perfect the first go around, but I realized now that what I was trying to do is kind of futile because the point of this refactor isn't to make everything perfect. It's not to make the game run smooth. It's not to make everything, clean and perfect. There's no way I can know in advance what perfection will look like. Instead, what I was trying to do was to solve a problem that I had before I started to refactor, which was that I had a God object. I had one file that controlled everything, and I can show you what it looked like. This was the file. This was the world.gd file. You can see how long this thing is, right? It's 560 lines. It's not that long comparatively, right? But this file basically managed the entire game, and it was all like mixed random functionality. Same thing with orbital body. This thing is also like 588 lines, and we had orbital manager, only 250. The point being that my old code was very, very sloppy. Everything was just smashed into one file, and I had this vague system of organization, but it wasn't working because there was just too much stuff happening per file. And so, in my new system, in my refactored game, I have everything split up, and I would like to keep it as split up as possible. However, you can go too far in the other direction. When you try to split things up too much and make everything too discrete and make everything perfectly encapsulated, you run into another problem, which is basically over optimization, where you keep trying to find the perfect way to do something where to the point where you will never figure it out because you just can't. It's not possible. Perfection is a myth. Instead, I should just focus on solving problems. And so that's what I started doing. For about an hour before recording this video, I focused on just adding back some features and fixing a few bugs and foregoing all of these optimizations. And I got the game to work. I mean, literally an hour ago, the minimap would not work. Like when I pressed M, it would glitch out, right? When I pressed M and then I pressed M again, Saturn would just disappear. But as you can see, Saturn is here. There we go. So see, the game is working. Like right now we are in minimap mode. And you can see like when I press M, I go back into first person view. So this is the first person view, just like before. And it's a lot cleaner now. Everything's a lot nicer. Everything's better. But I got to this point because I just stopped focusing on optimization and I just started fixing the damn problem, which was that the minimap wasn't working. So anyway, the point of this video is just like to update you guys on how the development is going. Past few days have been a little rough. I hate refactoring code. I hate having to go back into the weeds and fix everything, you know, because it's just annoying. Because I always get caught up in my own optimization processes instead of solving problems, which is what I love to do. I don't like optimizing stuff. I like optimizing if it's geared towards a specific problem. But in my case, I get too fixated on doing everything perfectly that I forget the problem. I forget the original task that I set out to complete. And so I just keep optimizing. And then eventually I just get lost. I waste hours. I get demotivated. I get, stuck. But then I remind myself that the point of this game is to have a cool game, just to have a nice, fun game to play. It's not to have the most optimized thing in the universe. That happens later. That's a separate problem for a separate time. Right now, I want to get the features working. I need to get the UI to work. I need to get the player to aim. I need to get guns working. I need to get ships working. I need to get all of this stuff, the asteroids, the orbital maneuvers, the orbital paths, labels, all of that stuff has to work first before I can start optimizing. So that is what I'm going to focus on from here on out, at least for the foreseeable future. Adding as many features as I can, optimizing where I should, where I need to, but leaving everything else for later as necessary. And basically what I'm saying is I am restructuring my workflow. I'm basically going to think to myself, what is the most important thing to do? And just do that instead of trying to optimize everything. But anyway, that's enough yapping. I hope you enjoyed this update. It's not really meant to be glamorous. I'm going to keep posting these videos every 2 or so days because that's going to keep me motivated. And all the views and comments I got on my other videos have really kept me going. I'm not even going to lie. It's been so nice. Even if it's only like 10, like even 5 comments, even 1 comment, man, just to see that one person on this earth cares about what I'm doing. That's enough to keep me going. And I'm going to keep going until I die or until I succeed. And I hope it's the latter. So I guess that's basically it. I'll see you guys in the next update. And hopefully I'll have a lot more interesting stuff to show off. Have a good night.